Steve Elkins is going to join us. He's back on Roatan. Last time I talked to Steve was when he was here before. If you don't know Steve, he's an explorer, a cinematographer, and the discoverer of the lost city of the monkey gods. Hi, Steve. Welcome back.
Hello, Keith. It's great to be back. Good to see you
Uh,
this year.
yeah, well, it's always nice. And I tell you what, it's great to be able to talk to you. I know you're going to be talking this weekend, but I thought while I had an opportunity to talk to you, we could definitely talk about, this whole story, because the first time I interviewed you, I didn't really know as much as I do now. One thing, I was reading a book, doing some research on something I'm working on about Honduras, and I came across something written in the 1940s that mentioned this lost city, Ciudad Blanca.
Right.
And it said, after all of our research, and these were like top researchers in the United States and around the world at the time, 1940s, we believe this does not exist, that it's completely a legend and a rumor.
Okay.
What did you think of that?
Well, I've read all those things too, and people have had mixed feelings about it, I think, ever since the whole legend began. Um, from my own experience in my first trip in 1994, saw things. Let me even backtrack. I started this whole thing, this whole adventure in 94, because I wanted to prove whether or not the legend was true or not. So on that first foray in 94, I saw something up in the mountains in the Mosquitia that told me, well, it was a big petroglyph. And I said, this does not exist in isolation. There had to be something going on. I also knew that at the place where this petroglyph was, you couldn't see more than 20 feet in front of you. So the forest, the rainforest must have looked very different in the past. And climate changes, environments change, and what you see today is not what was nor will be in the future. And I then became convinced that there was more truth than baloney to the story, and I became obsessed with trying to prove it. And that's what led to me being on your video right now.
So in 2012, there's a eureka moment. You're using LIDAR, which a lot of the stoic standard archaeologists were saying, "Well, no, that's not how you do this." And you're like, why are you talking about? What made you use the LIDAR that helped you discover these aberrations in the topsoil, in the ground?
Well, it's really quite simple. I had already done a number of expeditions over a number of years, the old school way, with having an indigenous guide take us places, using the machete to go through the jungle. And we found a few things, but we never found what we were looking for. And it was a lot of work and not very efficient. So I had heard about LIDAR in 2009 or 2010, where it was being tested at the Maya site of Caracol, and the archaeologists and everybody was amazed with what it could do. And I said, I'm going to try that because the other way is not very efficient. So I went and investigated LIDAR. I tested it out and I went, you know what? I think this is going to work. I then approached, it was a National Science Foundation group that was doing the LIDAR testing, to see if they would go to Honduras with me and we could scan over parts of the jungle and see what happens. And they said, well, we're happy to try, but we don't think it's going to work. We think the jungle's too thick and it's just not going to work. However, if you pay us, we'll try. So I paid them, we tried, and it worked great. Now everyone's doing it, and lost cities are a dime a dozen.
Isn't that weird? Now, I got to ask this, because a lot of these scans now can be done remotely, I'm going to assume. And the inset of AI, which can look at pictures and examine on a large scale a whole lot faster, should be opening up more of these, as you say, dime a dozen lost cities. Is that true? Is that what's happening? How is AI coming into this?
I'm sure it will. It's not, to my knowledge, really making a big difference at the moment. First of all, it's very expensive and very difficult to scan with LIDAR in great detail large areas. Now, you can use LIDAR from high altitude or from space, but the resolution isn't so good from that far away. So you still have to get close, maybe within 1,000, 1,500 feet of the surface to make it really work well. So AI, you could put it on a drone and you can control the drone with AI, and that could make the work easier, but you still got to collect the data. You still have to have, at this point in time, a team process that data, and then you need somebody who knows what to look for. Now, you could eventually train AI to do those things, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Certainly in the future, that's probably will be what happens, but it'll always take a human eye and a human brain to pick out different patterns, perhaps, that the AI has not been trained to do. Or the AI might pick out patterns that are false. You're still going to need somebody to analyze it.
I work with a lot of AI, and I find that to be true. AI is really good at what it knows, but it's not very good at winging it. It doesn't wing it very well. It's like it
Well, it
doesn't.
does wing it, but it's often wrong.
Well, when it does that, you're kind of they call that hallucinating. I did
Right.
that in the
Exactly.
'70s. Okay, so let's talk about going to the city. You know, you had been here before. You had talked to many people in the Mosquitia. The Mosquitia among Hondurans is known as a very dark place. I mean, there's practice of as they call it witchcraft there, according to like if you talk to the locals, and they'll say, "Oh, it's a very scary place." And then you also had the curse of this finding this city that had been around, and people had heard about that for years. What was that curse? Hearing that, I mean, I know you're a skeptic about curses, but what did you feel about that, and how did you kind of dissuade them? And then what happened once you got there?
Well, I didn't try to dissuade anybody from believing in curses. That's everybody has their own feelings about it, and certainly I'm not a big believer in curses. But I will say many things happen in this project. So many random, interesting, bad things and good things that I couldn't really figure out why these are happening. That we all joked among ourselves, going, "It's the monkey god. The monkey god is looking out for us, or he's mad at us. We better do something different." And maybe that's part of how these curses get started. And maybe there are forces at work that we don't understand, and maybe one day we will. But there are things that happen, chances and coincidences that occurred that I go, how the heck did this happen? But in any event, it worked. That's all I cared about was being able to try and determine if this place was real or not. And we determined that it is real. So that's
Had
good
you
enough.
ever heard of the word leishmaniasis before you went into the Mosquitia?
Well, I did read about it when I was looking into diseases that our team might have gotten. It was just a byline. I didn't really think about it. I asked our medical person. They said, "Yeah, probably not going to happen." However, the monkey god gave us a surprise. And after we had successfully completed our mission, and after we were sitting in Catacamas having a beer, going, nobody died, nobody got real sick, no big accidents. A short time later, those horrible sores started showing up on some of the people, and we had no idea what it was. We went to a lot of doctors back in the States. They had no clue until a Nat Geo photographer who had it said, "Hey, I think you got leishmaniasis. Call up the National Institute of Health in Bethesda. They're researching it and let them test you." And lo and behold, it was a new form of leishmaniasis, which was pretty bad. And they offered, thankfully, to treat everybody who got it for free. And people basically have it for life. It goes, it comes. There are drugs that represses it for a while, but then it comes back. So it's not a good thing.
This, by the way, folks, is a kind of a flesh-eating bacteria, and you don't want to get it. But half of your team that went in with you
Well, let
did
me let
get
me
it.
interrupt you a second here. It's not a bacteria. Okay, I want to
Okay,
be very clear.
it's a
It's not a
parasite.
flesh. It's not a flesh-eating bacteria. It's a parasite, which
Okay,
is a small animal, a single animal. It lives in the gut of a female sandfly, and when it bites you to get blood, like a mosquito, it goes through the proboscis in your bloodstream, and the parasite reproduces in your white blood cells. It's not eating your flesh, but it's destroying your white blood cells and reproducing. So you start with one, then you got 10, then you got 20, blah, blah, blah. And your body goes, "Hey, we're being invaded. Let's send in the stormtroopers to try and get rid of them." And in most people, it's not successful. So it's your own immune system, your own body that goes haywire and starts destroying yourself. It's basically not eating, but just killing your own flesh. It's your own body's reaction to the parasite. It's
well,
really
that would have made me believe in curses if gone in the 1930s into the jungle and caught that.
definitely.
Okay, what did not make it into any of the documents, the books, or the documentaries that have been done on this whole story?
What did not make it in the story?
Yeah,
Well, a
tell me
lot of
something
things.
that I haven't read about.
a lot of things that we'll never read about because it could cause problems for myself and for people. All I can say is to pull this off over the years it took to do it, I had to learn how to dance with an awful lot of devils. And I'll leave it at
Okay.
that because
Okay. Gotcha.
it takes a lot of stuff to make it happen. Now, I can tell you stories if you want to hear one. They have nothing to do with people, that unfortunate things that happen, if you like. I can tell
Yeah.
you
Go
one, but
ahead.
you'll enjoy it. All right. When we first came to the Mosquitia the first time back in 1994, we landed, we chartered a plane and flew to Palacios, which is on the north coast in the middle, in the jungle coast. And we got there kind of late at night or late in the afternoon. It was getting dark. And we needed to go to another part of this lagoon. There are no roads there. I don't think there still are. And we contracted with a couple of fishermen that had like fast boats. And they were going to quickly take us out in the open ocean and get into this other lagoon where we could camp. And we go out and it's late in the afternoon. It's really windy, kind of like it is here today. And the surf is up. And I go, I don't have a good feeling about this. But fortunately, I had bought some really super duper marine walkie talkies. They were waterproof. And I put them in Ziploc bags. And I said, we're going to go in two separate teams. We have two boats. We're not both going to go at the same time in case something happens and we need a rescue. So I go in the first boat with a group of people. We get out into the surf line and a rogue wave comes and it flips the boat up and all of us are hanging on and we pull the railings right out of the boat, clean out of the boat. Everyone's flying up in the air, tumbling back, fortunately, back into the boat. People got cut up and bruised. The engine's dead. We're in the surf. It's getting dark. And I'm going, we're going to die. But I had my handy dandy walkie talkie in my Ziploc bag. And I called our other colleague with the other boat and said, we're in trouble. They came and rescued us and we made it. But that was not the end of that evening. We then got to this other lagoon and we had to go in some dugouts and some aluminum canoes or whatever they had to cross this lagoon. And it's pitch dark. And, there's crocodiles in the water in these lagoons in Mosquitia. And we're going along and all of a sudden I hear screaming and a loud thud. Two of the boats crashed into each other and people started to spill out along with our gear. And I go, okay, we're going to die here. But somehow we made it. So the monkey god taketh and giveth.
There you go. Now, Honduras was the farthest southeast frontier of the Mayan Empire. This city predates Mayans, is my understanding. It's got nothing to do with the Mayans. Is that correct?
Well, not that it has nothing to do with the Maya. It certainly predates the Mayan cultures, as far as we know. To my knowledge, the radiocarbon dating that had been done goes back 4,400 years. And then the latest research, there wasn't much that happened in the last 5 or 6 years because of COVID and the change in administration. But some archaeologists and anthropologists have been analyzing all these carvings that were in a lot of the sculptures on the legs. And they were laid out, as I always said, like a storyboard. They each had different patterns and they were divided by vertical parallel lines. So coming from the TV industry, it looked like a storyboard. Archaeologists did not necessarily agree with me until about 2 years ago, they called me and said, we've been looking at this and we think this is early Olmec writing, which makes it very, very old. Olmecs are considered the mother culture for Mesoamerica, going way back. And they're starting to work on interpreting it. And I'm looking forward to meeting with them and perhaps they can give me further insights. So I guess my hunch was probably correct to begin with, but nobody went along with that in the beginning.
Is this almost like a hieroglyphic type of storyboard where you're reading from one part to another and you kind of figure that
Yeah,
out? This is telling a
yeah.
story here.
It's a linear, thing. For example, they did it on the legs of some of the sculptures or on the edge of some metates and tables. And normally, at first everyone said, oh, it's just decorative. Well, it was decorative. They repeat the same symbol over and over and over. It's a repetition of symbols, just like in modern furniture or art. But each frame was different. So to me, that says it's telling a story. And that's really what it was doing. And so I'm looking forward to they are able to interpret more and see what it is. And I'm sure that'll be quite interesting. Some of the symbols are actually symbols that are in some of the Mayan temples in Mexico on the face with the face of the steps. They call it I can't remember the name, a sky panel. and those panels are like a storyboard. But the Mayan glyphs are more like pictures. You can kind of see this is a head, this is a bird, whatever it is. But these are not. These are all symbolic. But some of those symbols are on Mayan sky panels. And it really shocked me that they were also in these storyboards that we had. So those
You
symbols go way, way back.
you have been you I mean, you are definitely a persistent person. When did you first hear about this? And I know you had to wait a really long time. You got this going in what, 2014?
Well, I started in 94. That's when I first made my first foray, and I did several in the 90s, and we're moving along quite smartly till Hurricane Mitch just wiped out the country, and I kind of gave up for a while. And then I reconstituted everything in 2009. I started researching when I heard about LIDAR, and I figured, oh, this could work. In 2012, we did a LIDAR scan. We actually stayed here on Roatan at the former parrot tree plantation, and we kept our plane at the airport, and we'd go out. Our daily job was to go scan the jungle in the plane, come back at night, and the engineers staying at the parrot tree would be up all night processing the data. Well, after a few days of that, we found in a place that I kind of thought there would be a lost city. There it was, clear as a bell on LIDAR. We found a couple other places. Well, then we had to actually go there on the ground, which was a whole nother problem and a set of logistics. And that took 3 years to figure out, to get the money, the political backing, the putting together the team. And in 2015, we went there on the ground and we saw everything we saw on LIDAR plus a lot more things. And then it really got cooking. And we spent a couple years working with Nat Geo and with the Honduran government and doing excavations. And it just got better and better until COVID.
What's next for Steve Elkins?
Well, what's next? In 2015, when we were wrapping up our excavation work at that time, I had a helicopter at my disposal and I had some extra time. And on the last day of our expedition, I said, let's just go roaming around and see if we can find something just by luck. So I went to another part, which I'm not going to tell you exactly where it is, of the Mosquitia, and we saw a very unique topographic and geologic formation, which everything that I knew about archaeology, anthropology, and earth science and geology said to me, this is a very special place. And I think many of the mysteries of the past can be answered if we go there and explore and see what we can find. There's a mountaintop with a unique rock formation on it, very unusual. And I'm sure that the kings or shamans or priests or the mucky bucks of the day went up there and did something. So within this rock formation, there's probably a bunch of petroglyphs, maybe artifacts, so on and so forth. And then alongside it, there are big sinkholes. Big enough, we tried to put our helicopter in it, but there were too many trees. So there's sinkholes that leads to caves. Caves were very important in ancient Central America, all over the world, actually. So I believe that these sinkholes may lead to places where there are high royal burials, just like they had at Talgoa Cave years ago. And who knows what else? There's probably different ecosystems within there because of different light, different moisture. There's a sort of a stratigraphy of different ecosystems. And God knows what the people threw in there, what bodies, in ancient times as well as currently. I'm sure the narcos want to get rid of somebody. It's like a giant toilet bowl. Let's fly over there and dump them in there. So it's a unique place. And I hope to be able to go there in the very near future, lead a team of people and find out what's really there. If I'm right, it'll be a big discovery. If I'm wrong, everyone said, oh, you're an idiot for trying. But my motto I use is a proverb or a saying that Miguel Cervantes, the Spanish writer, years ago said, in order to achieve the impossible, one must attempt the absurd. So I guess I will keep attempting the absurd until I achieve the impossible.
What time are you speaking this weekend?
I believe it's 7:00 on Saturday night, but I could be off by a half hour. You'd
Could
have
be
to
off.
ask the people.
Better
Grand
than being
Roatan.
off by better than being off by 20 years.
Right. Better than being off by 20 years. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hey, it's great talking to you, Steve. We'll talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for talking to me. Bye-bye.